On 96.5 CTG, Alan Barnes here. I have Rick Springfield on the phone. How you doing, Rick?
I'm good.
You're calling in from California?
Yes, I am.
If
The beach.
Oh,
It's sunny.
lucky you. Awesome. Well, let's jump right into the book, because that's the hot topic. Christmas is coming. You just put out a book. I think Simon & Schuster is handling it. How does that happen? I mean, is it something, do you start off saying, hey, I'm going to write a book, and you shop it around, or does somebody approach you first?
Yeah, I just started writing it, and then, you write up a proposal and just shop the proposal around, and they really loved it and wanted to do it, and but they thought I would have a ghostwriter, because that's what most celebrity bios are. You talk your story into a tape recorder, then a writer goes away and writes it up. And they thought that's what they did with me, but then I'd already written like 30,000 words, so I sent them what I'd already written, and they really loved the voice and wanted me to write it. So it was a great experience. Very happy to have started writing again.
Yeah, it's very unique in that. I mean, right away you grab us in the first couple of chapters with the where you're putting the fake sound effects in there. It's very playful, very much first person, and the flashbacks are interesting because they're not written like I did this. It's not past tense. It's like you sort of take us cinematically to like current tense.
Yeah, I had to fight them. They weren't sure that I wanted to do it in present tense, and they said, "Well, we're not usually done in present tense." So I wrote it up that way, and they really liked it. So I'm glad I did too. I think it makes it very of the moment.
Yeah, it makes it a fun read too, and it makes it kudos to them for not trying to lowball their estimation of what the readers can handle.
Yeah, I agree. The publishing business is still very cool. It's a lot of great people. I enjoyed the whole experience. They want me to write more, so I'm going to do that too. Very excited about that.
You've been doing a lot of like book signings and stuff too. Is that right?
We did a 2.5 week book tour where we did New York and Chicago and LA and did book signings. A couple of books. I did 2 in one day in New York. It was pretty hectic.
Is that kind of a
No,
grind
it's
there?
great. I mean, I love meeting people. And certainly we're there for a mutual reason. It's actually pretty amazing. I mean, I signed like over 1,000 books one day, and that's a lot of signing and a lot of meeting, and it was, I'm very up for the promoting the book because I believe in it. Had some great reaction. Certainly getting on New York Times bestseller list. First weekend was a great nod. So I got a lot of energy for it.
You dropped in at like number 13, I think, which was pretty awesome to think that, I mean, you're basically throwing elbows with conservative guys like Glenn Beck or even George Bush, throwing elbows with George and Sarah Palin. And
My book may be a little more honest, that's all.
one of the things I liked about it is that I could relate to the most is I was an Air Force brat. What you said about never befriending the first kid that comes up to you on the first day of school that wants to be your friend, so true.
It's always the dork the first day.
Yeah, and it's
amazing that it was always true. It was 100% true.
And it's true. It's true in a different era. I mean, I grew up in the '70s in the United States, and it didn't take me long. I mean, we moved every year before I realized. And and I'm not a heartless guy. I mean, I wanted to balance out my natural desire to befriend somebody that needed a friend with that knowledge of it's like you make the wrong move socially in your first week there. That's you're going to pigeonhole yourself, and you're going to be running from the bus stop every day to keep from getting beat up or.
It's pretty freaky.
Well, Rick, what I was going to say about the book is, as honest and as brave as it is, do you worry sometimes that maybe you've pulled the cape off of Superman in terms of your public persona and going back out on tour now with the fans having that much knowledge of all your deepest, darkest fears? And
no, not really. I mean, I wanted to write about my life, and I didn't want it to be untruthful. I wanted it to be truthful. Otherwise, it was not a story that I wanted to write. So. I mean, I didn't write it to be Mr. Popular, and I think it's a story of a human life. A lot of people have said they're glad I peeled the scab off depression, so they can talk about it. And, there's a lot of things in there. I mean, there's a lot of things where admittedly, I've been a jerk, and other times where I've tried to, be my best. So it's just a It's a human story. I think I've only heard one comment from one person who said they think less of me because of the book. And honestly, to me, that says a lot more about them than about me. So we're all honest. We could all write a book like this.
Oh yeah, there's no doubt, and I don't mean that it was going to cause people, because you come across as very human and extremely sympathetic in the book, but I'm just worried about, rock and roll is such an image business, and that whole larger than life stage persona. There's always this fear of, are you going to reveal that the insignificant man behind the curtain is not the great and powerful Oz? So it's brave of you to sort of let us all in that way.
Yeah, I've always felt that the whole image thing is always way bigger than the person, and I've always been uncomfortable under that. So I was kind of glad to pop the bubble.
Well, I think there's an interesting contradiction in the book in that, you're very upfront about the different things you have going on with women and that whole rock and roll lifestyle. But for me, the three women in the book that I would characterize as your most significant relationships. Doug Davidson's sister, obviously, Diana, Linda Blair, and then now your wife, Barbara. Your gallant in your treatment of them, and just even the people that you don't name. It was always phrased as, I was the bad guy. There was nothing wrong with them. They're great people. You didn't take any shots or any cuts, and I think that really comes across really well in the book.
Yeah, I felt I was the jerk in a lot of the situations, and it was really just a human being struggling to try and find himself is what it is, and we don't always do it in a pretty manner, and we don't always do it the bravest way. So but I've learned from all those things, and I've learned to be a better person looking back on the pain I've caused people. That's what I can hope for, is this growth in a positive direction for my soul.
Oh, sure. And it balances out, too, because, obviously, your music in particular, I know you've heard this a million times, but here's 1,000,001, where you talk in your music about the passing of your father. My wife, she was 19 when she lost her mother, and she was a huge fan of yours growing up. And those songs meant a lot, a whole lot to her, as they have to so many others, that your ability to share that part of you.
Well, I've always been truthful when I write, and I think that creates some good honest songs, and but it also, I have to be truthful in the autobiography too, and that can be. I was a little worried before it came out, thinking that people were actually going to read it, and made me a little nervous. But I got over it, and I'm glad I did. But bearing your soul is tough stuff. It's not. I wrote it without a ghostwriter, so I don't have anyone else to blame, and they know it's coming directly from me, so
right.
It's a little scary at times.
Well, this is a 70s radio show, and we are, our audiences, some of them that don't know your career as well, are going to be trying to figure out what our hook to you in the 70s is. But obviously, you start off in the United States with Speak to the Sky, and I know I'm glad, just as a broadcaster and as a fan, that you did get a second shot in a much, much bigger career in Phase 2, because I wouldn't want to be interviewing, Rick Springfield now. They had their one hit, they had a couple of hits. Then it just comes off as this, well, we're talking with Rick Springfield now, currently residing in the Where Are They Now file. You may remember him from, and it's just so refreshing to have. So, thank God for that, because that's the interview we would be doing had not Karma not intervened and brought you Phase 2. But Mission Magic, of course, is something that some 70s fans can sort of hook into, too. Did you actually voice that, or was it just the one song per episode contribution?
No, it was my voice, played myself, which is a very bizarre thing. I had my old English accent, my old Australian English accent.
Right.
I sound about 6 years old, and it's pretty funny. But I wrote the song a week. It ran for 2 years. It was an interesting sidestep to my career while I was still struggling with where I wanted to go. Yeah,
but it got you some checks to sort of sustain you through the lean years too. So it's
yeah, exactly. And it was really actually great for my songwriting, because I had to write a song a week. So I really had to push to get a song finished, and that was good. The discipline of that was really good. There's fans whose kids actually really like that show. I met Quentin Tarantino at a party, and he said, "Oh man, Mission Magic. I love that. I used to watch it all the time."
So you just never know where you're going to influence, are going to hit. And of course, as we moved through the 70s, there was I don't know if it was Capitol or Columbia, but there was the whole payola scandal.
I got a deal with Capitol. They brought me over here from Australia, or I came over from Australia under a deal with Capitol, and released an album, recorded an album, and released a single. The single was a hit. It was a top 10 single called "Speak to the Sky," and there was a lot of payola. You know, I mean, big surprise. You know, a lot of payola going on, and someone got busted for it. And they tried to shift the blame and said that it was us that were, you know, like busing kids in to buy the single and everything, which wasn't true. And so my managers got all bent out of shape and took me away from Capitol and put me at Columbia, and it kind of started a thing where I was going from home to home.
Sure.
You know, record company to record company, and I'm lucky enough to have stayed in there long enough to make sure that, you know, I had a shot at what I wanted to do. So I learned a lot about myself in those years, the '70s.
Yeah.
How to stay connected and focused on what I wanted, despite, you know, the world blowing up around me, and it certainly was.
And then fast forward, 4 or 5 years in the future, one of the things that struck me in the book too was you're playing at some restaurant and bar, you're doing top 40, and the girl's basically like, well, didn't you used to be Rick Springfield? It's like, well, I still am, but
right.
But then we hit that period where, you know, Lethal Run enters the picture. You know, you get all these positive signs, you get a tarot card reading, and then your life starts to turn around almost to the point where it was too much, because like General Hospital and Working Class Dog both sort of just blew up at the same time, and it's a chicken and egg. It's like, which one came first?
Yeah, they certainly hit interestingly together. I recorded the record first, and then got General Hospital, and they were delaying the release of the record because it was a rock and roll record, and they didn't know what to do with it because disco was still alive.
I was doing cover bands at the time, and thank God you came along, because, as you pointed out, guitar-based music was lacking. And vocally, you were kind of in my range, so we ate that record up, and Success too, the second one, as far as getting tunes for our sets.
Yeah, it was a good, just radio was just starting to accept rock and roll again, and guitars, and I just happened to be there with the right songs at the right time.
Venus in Overdrive is your strongest record ever, and I'll say that with absolutely no qualms at all. It could sit right next to anything that's out there, sound-wise, song quality-wise. Are you writing your next record? And if so, are you planning to work with Matt again? Or?
Yeah, I am, actually. We're writing right now, and hopefully that'll be out early next year. If we can get into the studio, it should be out pretty soon. We're still in the writing mode now, though. But yeah, it's going to be, I think it's going to be a great record, really. You know, it was a turning point for me doing Venus in Overdrive, because it showed me that, you can still do the best record of your career 30 years into your career. So that's very encouraging to me, and a good sign for me of the direction of my writing and focus is going in. So I'm really looking forward to the next record and the one after that. And I have an amazing band. They're thundering, and it's a full-on rock and roll show, and all the songs work together really well, the new stuff with the old stuff.
So touring plans this year too, or
for 2011?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, definitely. We're taking January off, and then we'll start up in February, and there'll also be TV stuff and more things coming out too, as well as a new record. Thanks, Alan.
All right, thanks, Rick.